Hello, everyone. This is David Lang from Israellycool.com, and I'm really excited to welcome a very special guest today. He's an internationally renowned comedian and actor who has starred in a number of sitcoms, guest starred in even more shows, including The Chappelle Show, Bones, The Mentalist. He's been on The Tonight Show at least 10 times, as far as I know. He's been on The Late Late Show with James Corden. He's even had his own Netflix special, which I think is now on Amazon Prime. He's a good friend of mine, but most important of all, he's a huge, huge mensch. Elon Gold, thank you for joining me as my first ever interview guest.
Wow. I'm honored to be the first. And before, did you want to say something? Because I'm going to interrupt you at every point that I can. I
just wanted to say, don't feel the pressure. You're my first guest, and not only that, everyone who's watching this, everyone is going to be watching for you, not for me. I can stink up this place. You can't.
Well, you can't beat that beautiful background that you've chosen for this interview. I mean, just the wall in a corner, and then your air conditioning heating unit, which I have too, by the way. I have that right there. I have my unit on the wall. See, we have similar units, so to speak. And we're going to keep this one clean, aren't we? And then the window.
We don't have to.
I mean, I know you have a lovely home. I've seen the backyard with the ping pong. I've seen it all. There were nicer areas where you could have done this from, but you chose to look like the Taliban is hiding you or something. I don't know what that is. But before we start, can I just show you something? I was told, and I know you have questions, but I already have answers. I was told that everything is on Zoom now. So the best way to Zoom is to take your laptop, right? Are you drinking already?
I am. It's late at night here.
Okay, well here it's early in the morning, so I'm drinking my coffee with Inspire, but l'chaim. And I made the bracha before, so stop judging people. Yeah. but you know, it's so funny because I'm working on a bit. It's not ready yet, but I'll give you the basis of it, that Judaism is the only religion that encourages day drinking at least once a week. Like Saturday morning, it could be 10:40 in the morning. It's like, you want to make a l'chaim? Do you want to? I have to. What do you mean? What do you mean? Do I want to? I can't eat before I drink this stuff. And it's such a like people show off their flasks. It's like 11 a.m. Like, I got a new flask. Imagine a church where someone takes a flask out before noon. That's a problem. Then we have to talk to this person. This is a situation. He's going to go to meetings for years. It's not a good thing. We are encouraged to day drink, one of the beauties of Showbiz and our religion. But before I start, David, before I start with jokes and all that kind of stuff, I was told that on Zoom, you should put a few books, under your laptop, and you're supposed to be, and also I have this weird glow from a window, so I'm going to get rid of that. But I just want to show you just the books that I've chosen. One of my favorites, The Prime Ministers, right? We have that. And then
that's great. I love that book.
This great book by Daniel Gordis, Israel. And it's just so interesting because to me, like the most important things in my life, besides God and family, and this is along those lines, is Israel and comedy. This is a great book. I'm dying up here. Those are my two loves, Israel and comedy. So I'm now going to place these books under, and let's see if it helps, because I just heard this, that if you Zoom, you want to be above your head, and then you want to tilt it down. Are we doing better? Is this better?
I love the books. I don't care about the views so much. Those books are very impressive, Ellen. Love those books. They're
very impressive. I'm a very learned, well-read man. I'm going to be honest right now, David, because you're a friend. I don't want to lie to you. The only book I've finished cover to cover is Private Parts by Howard Stern. Oh,
that's a great book, by the way. I've read that.
Amazing.
I'm Aussie, but I know about Howard Stern. But listen, let me ask some questions because I feel I have to contribute to this a little bit, right? A little bit. First of all, I wanted to know, how are you doing? I mean, we're living in crazy times right now. How are you as a comedian, the funny guy that sees the humor in situations, doing in such a serious time like this? I mean, how are you coping?
There's so much to talk about that. The coping is everything because we're all in this together. We're all coping with horrors. We're literally, we all know people that are sick, that are dying, that have died. It is such a uniquely awful time. So, and by the way, I'm fortunate in my life that, you know, I kvetch about this as a joke, but I have a house of 12 right now. I have my two parents who are in their 80s, and I'm not letting them go back to New York. They were here for the bar mitzvah before this all hit the fan. And I said, you're staying here. And now they're clearly staying for Pesach, which is like a great thing to have my parents.
That's a great thing, right?
Yeah, amazing. Then I have my wife's brother and his wife and their two little kids. So I have a house of 12, and it's like, you've heard of the movie Cheaper by the Dozen? This is more expensive by the dozen, because we are feeding a house of 12. In fact, I'm gonna write a movie about this after. It's gonna be sort of like a reverse Home Alone. You know what I mean? Remember Home Alone? This movie is gonna be called Not Home Alone. I am not. This is, you know what this movie should be called? Get Out. No, but really, I couldn't be happier that they're here with me. I feel so blessed that so many people are alone and in hospital beds, or elderly people, or just one person in an apartment. And that makes this whole fun little quarantine. Everyone's like, oh, we're doing quarantine things. It's not fun. It's not fun for those people. And, you know, what I try to do every day is I do this show on my Instagram Live called My Funny Quarantine. And
I know about it. Yeah.
Of course you do. You've done stories about it, how we had Tom Green on, and he said a beautiful pro-Israel. You know, he was really, it was so nice to hear someone in Hollywood be nice to us. And you did a story about that.
Even though we are in Hollywood.
We are?
We control Hollywood, but they're not nice to us. I don't get it.
Right. No, you're in Hollywood. I'm in Hollywood. You're in Hollywood, which is the name of a new show I'm working on, coming soon, by the way. And that's a real thing, but we'll talk about that another time when it's closer.
Yes.
But yeah, you know, so what I do is every day at 6:13, and I pick that time for a reason. And I start the show by saying it's time to make the mitzvahs, because the mitzvah that I could make and give to the world is just laugh. It's an 18-minute show, again, a significant number that means life. And I just want to just compartmentalize everything and all the horror, and just take 18 minutes a day to just laugh and just be funny. And I have comedian guests on, and I have my parents come into the studio. We do a Yiddish word of the day, and we just try to have fun. And it's really, for me, it just keeps me sane. It gives me something to focus on and work on, because I'm working on jokes during the day and segments to talk about. And then, so selfishly, it's for me, it keeps my sanity. And then unselfishly, it's for everyone to tune in and just take a break and just check out and have fun. Am I still glowing? Is this light still too much?
No, you look great. You look great.
Oh, thank you. I literally did my hair.
You're glowing. Right. No.
I did my hair. I made sure to have a nice background, unlike some people.
No. Well, first of all, about the background, you obviously have a man cave going on there, okay? I have man cave envy, okay? Yes, you're right. I don't have a man cave, but what I do have in my house right now with me are 5 kids and 2 dogs that tend to bark at everything. So that's why I'm stuck in my room as a prisoner within my quarantine.
Your own home.
House, yeah. And that I don't dare step out.
I will say this is one of the best things that's happened to me. The crazy thing is it was completed 2 days before everyone went on lockdown. It was just completed a few weeks ago. And what's that?
Min hashamayim, from God.
Literally, min hashamayim, because I got to tell you what this was. You know, this looks like I'm doing very well. Oh, I have money. I don't. I live month to month like most people. And all of anything that I had sort of went into this and our backyard. And it was all in preparation for this big bar mitzvah that we had to cancel because of everything. And we just did this really intimate, nice, with like 15, enough to have a minyan. My son Darren read the Torah beautifully. And the whole thing was, we were going to do, you know, let's not rent a hall and spend so much on caterers. Let's just redo something that we'll keep forever, our backyard and my back office, just for the bar mitzvah. Wound up being about 10 times more than a catering hall, and just took everything I had. But it couldn't have come at a better time. And literally everyone I'm Zooming with now thinks I'm like this insanely wealthy, successful
Right.
comedian. I am modern successful. Now, if you know what that means, it's one of my earliest famous and my most favorite jokes that I've ever written about being modern Orthodox. I say I'm I'm proud modern Orthodox Jew. And after all these years, I finally figured out what modern means in modern Orthodox. It means not so.
That's so true.
Yeah, it's just the nicer way of saying I'm not so Orthodox, and then I say it'd be great if there was, yeah.
No, but I was
Just to
about to
finish
say,
the punchline of that, and then I want to hear this. The punchline, which is one of my favorite punchlines, is it'd be great if there are other areas in life where you have the nicer way of saying things. Like you go on a blind date and you're like, oh, what's she like? Well, she's very smart and she's funny. What does she look like? She's modern, pretty. Oh, so I'm modern, successful. Yes. That's it.
That's funny you should say that, because, I mean, okay, yeah, you've got this shtick about you being modern Orthodox, not so, but I have to tell the people watching this now, you were late for this show today. And why were you late, Elon? Mr. Modern
and I'm very punctual usually, and especially with people I love and respect. And being late is really a sign of disrespect. It's like, oh, I don't care about you, I'll be late. It was the opposite of that. It was because the only person I care more about you is God, and I was at a virtual shear that was supposed to go an hour and went an hour and a half, and that's why I was exactly 30 minutes late. David
You're not
Sachs,
so modern. You're not so modern after all.
But David Sachs, who is this brilliant Torah scholar, and just so happens to be a comedy writer who wrote on The Simpsons and Third Rock from the Sun, we get together every Wednesday, and now we have Sunday shears on Zoom, every Wednesday with Jeff Astroff, another genius comedy writer who was one of the original Friends writers and has done so many shows. Like literally a few of us get together every Wednesday at a coffee bean, and David Sachs just like enthralls us, inspires us with his just genius. I mean, he has in his brain, he could cite passages and tell you what daf on the Gemara it is, and it's all in there. He's like a Harvard guy with a freakishly brilliant brain. Yeah. And we just sit there and we learn and we laugh, and it's so sad that we can't do this anymore. One of a myriad sad things out there. We can't get together to learn. So now we've been learning Wednesdays and Sundays. Sundays is more open to the public and not just comedy writers, but every Wednesday we still learn. Now it's just on Zoom. What are your thoughts on the Zoom Pesach situation, by the way? The Seder thing.
Right. Well, I don't want to get into these waters because I'm no rabbi, but there was a bit of controversy about it in Israel because you had some rabbis saying you could do the Zoom Seder. Right. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, the chief rabbi of Israel and some others said, no, you can't do it. Personally, and again, I'm not the most learned guy in the world, but let's say my neshama, my intrinsic feelings about it, there's a lot of, and I'm being serious here, is that, psychological need is a real thing here. You've got the actual illness, but you've got people who are really suffering and depressed. And you've got these little old ladies and grandparents who are by themselves, widowers, without their children with them. And I think it would be a beautiful thing if someone sets up the Zoom with them before. They're not actually touching things necessarily, and they're just there and they're able to talk. That would be an amazing thing. So that's really my personal opinion.
You couldn't be more right. Yeah, you couldn't be more right. I'm just going to make sure that this camera is perfectly clean so you can see me well, because I think there's a smudge there. Is smudge a Yiddish word, by the way? You couldn't be more right. There's some schmutz, yeah. Schmutz. But we were learning about that today, and it was brought up, and he said, of course there should be sort of like a heter for people if you're in a hospital bed, and you want to Zoom with people, and I can't imagine anything worse than not being at a Seder table. But he said you have to be aware of the slippery slope, and the slippery slope is kids who are just dying to text on their phones every Shabbos, and they can't deal with that 25 hours of not texting. Now they see, oh, well, they Zoomed on Pesach, and we could so the slippery slope is the danger.
That's true.
But I am also, like you just said, all for it. My goodness, if you're alone and you're elderly or whatever, it transcends, any sort of modern laws, rabbinical laws.
Yeah.
It's certainly not a Torah law to use
Right.
Zoom. I don't think Zoom was in the Torah. It might. I got to go check. I have some books behind me. I will check if Zoom was addressed by Rashi. But I think that, you know, we do have to adapt. This is a biblical time. It is a plague, so we have to adapt for that. But let's get back
Oh
to
my God,
comedy.
it is. Right.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about comedy. You were alluding to the fact it's, you know, it's hard. You know, you're not necessarily this glamorous comedian, Hollywood life. I mean, despite your amazing resume. And I was just thinking about that. And you're someone, or all stand-up comedians, you guys are feeding off the energy of an actual audience, right? I mean, it's one,
Yes.
You have your jokes, but it's the energy in the room that really can help facilitate the good performance. So what's that like at the moment? Are you like in withdrawal at the moment, not having an audience of people in a room with you that you're able to, I mean, you have your My Quarantine show, but I guess it's not quite the same having people in the internet watching you as opposed to in the room, the energy in the room.
There's nothing like stand-up, and having done sitcoms and movies and anything else I've done, stand-up is like the greatest, most rewarding art form because of that, because of the energy of the people. I can't wait to get back to that. I was just about to tweet, I think I forgot how to do stand-up, because it is a muscle that you have to do. Jay Leno famously says, when he was doing the Tonight Show, and that's not stand-up, he's telling monologue jokes and he's doing bits and interviews, but his stand-up act, when he was the peak of everything, the host of the Tonight Show, he would go every Sunday night to a comedy club in Hermosa Beach, Comedy and Magic Club, a great little club, and he would do his act once a week. Why does Jay Leno need it? He didn't need the money. He doesn't need to be in front of an audience. He's in front of a live studio audience every day. He said, because you forget your act if you don't do it weekly. You forget how to do stand-up if you don't do it weekly. I'm in week 4 now. I've forgotten how to do it. And it is, and then Jim Gaffigan, I was with, you know Jim, right? He's a great comedian. Yeah. By the way, do I look at you or do I look at the camera? I'm always confused because I love looking at you, but then it's like I'm just looking down. Whereas
wherever you're looking now is working. It looks like you're looking at me right now. Whatever you're doing, it's good.
Wait, so let's do it like an optometrist test. Like this, A or B?
That's good.
A.
B.
See, B. So it is looking at the camera. Like this.
But A
like
works.
this.
A is okay.
Better like this. Better like this. Better like this, or this. How about this? Is better? Is this?
It's exactly like
and
that.
So I was at the Comedy Store, and I'm backstage. It's like all these great comedians are just hanging out. It's Jeff Ross and Joe Rogan and Jim Gaffigan, and I'm sitting next to Gaffigan, and he just turns to Joe Rogan. He goes, "Hey, man, thanks for putting me on the show tonight. I haven't done stand-up in a week." And I said to myself, can I still do this? And I was like, wow, if Jim Gaffigan, who's like, what, top 5 biggest earning, best comedians in the world right now, if he thinks that a week can go by and he could forget how to do this, you know, we could all forget. So now I'm in week 4. I don't know. It's going to be a challenging thing to get back to it. My gut is it will be like riding a bike because it's in my bones and I've done it for almost 30 years now. That maybe I'll struggle a little bit at first, but I'll just get right back on there. But it is tough. And this show that I'm doing daily is just helping the comedy muscle, the writing and sort of performing. But you're right, man, without a crowd, without doing a joke and not hearing the laughs, it ain't easy.
Right. I mean, it's funny you should say the comedy muscle, because I do, when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking of like the gym. If I don't go to the gym or work out for a week, when you go back into the gym, you're struggling to push up the weights and be at the point where you were before. It's a real muscle. But actually,
Dave, can I just say you're even smarter than you look, because all comedians.
I hope so.
All comedians have used that analogy, and I've used it a million times. People always ask me, why do you go to the comedy clubs every night? Because I don't know if you know this, but comedy clubs pay like $20. It's not where you make your money. You make your money if you're doing, you know, big events or corporate gigs or fundraisers or galas or TV shows or scripts you're selling. That's bar mitzvahs. that's where you really can, you know, pay your mortgage with. You go to a comedy club, they hand you either a 20 or the 20 and a 10. It's literally cab fare. So they're like, why would you do it? And it's the same question. Why would you go to the gym, which you're paying to be at? You go to the gym to work out your muscles. You go to a comedy club, it's a workout, and we call it a workout. That's why I was saying it's such a smart thing that you had the observation without being a comedian. But you're a funny guy. You could think like
I'm a
us.
comedian of sorts.
You're just you're just a clown.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take that.
You
I'll
are.
take
Listen,
that.
I follow you. I followed Israellycool before we were friends. I was a fan, so don't forget that. I've
That
always
means a lot to
followed
me.
you, and there is such great biting humor in a lot of what you do, which is what I was drawn to at first, because I was like, wow, he's not only a champion of our people and our homeland, but he does it with this great biting wit. Don't cry. But anyway, so of course you would pick up on the gym analogy, because it is the perfect analogy. And without the gym and without our comedy clubs, our muscles atrophy, and you know, we wouldn't be ready for the big gigs, for the TV appearances.
Yeah, so I want to kind of now look a bit more into how you became a comedian. Was it an epiphany you had one day, or was it a gradual process? How old were you? What was the process like of you becoming a comedian or saying, I am a comedian?
The closest thing I had to my Oprah aha moment, as we call it here. And by the way, you, with what you do, you're the Oprah of our people. You inspire, we learn from you. So thank you for everything you do. But enough about you. I'm
I've never
spending
been
way
called the Oprah before. Okay.
of our people, the Oprah of our people. But
I'm more Jerry Springer, aren't I?
No,
I'm more
not
Jerry
at all.
Springer? No?
No,
Okay.
no. Jerry Springer, Yamach Shamo. I'm kidding. He's not that bad, but he's not that bad. But you're a little
He's a
bit better than
shanda. He's a shanda.
He's a shanda,
Yes.
is what he is. He glorifies the worst in humanity. So no, you're not Springer. But anyway, you're more Phil Donahue. Remember him?
Oh, I love Phil Donahue.
Oh my
Of
goodness!
course, in Australia we have him. Yeah.
Incredible. So it's what were we talking about?
How you became a comedian?
How I started. That's a great thing. My Oprah aha moment. Yes, it was the ADD is just kicking in, and I have all these thoughts.
Oh,
but just to focus,
I've got that too.
but you have it, right?
I have it big time. Yeah.
All great minds have it. But for me, I started doing impressions like as a kid, 7th grade, 8th grade, and I would do impressions of my teachers, and the whole class would laugh. And then by high school, I figured out a way to do impressions of teachers that wasn't sort of derisive and mocking them, but it was glorifying them and make them like, oh, wow, that's so cool. He's doing me. And they would ask me to get up in front of the class and then teach the class as them, which was always a weird thing. But for me, my moment of like, oh my God, I have to do this was, believe it or not, a Purim spiel. And I went to Yeshiva University High School, MTA, which is in Manhattan. And
yes.
It's an all boys school. And don't get me started on that. But
I know a bit about it, by the way. I know the stories. Yeah.
You know the stories. Yeah. And not even the stories, just being in your teenage full on libido years and having nothing but boys around you. It was not fun for anyone, but I remember it was very similar to that. But I remember having there was this Purim in front of the entire school. So I'm like a sophomore, and they said, you want to be a part of this Purim? It's going to be in front of the whole school. So I remember just writing these 2 sketches. One was an impression of Mr. Grossman, our math teacher that everybody knew, and I just went and did a lesson as Mr. Grossman. And one was, I was doing an impression of a character that Martin Short used to do, Ed Grimley. And it was what would happen if Ed Grimley had to go to the chief rabbi of the school. You always had to do an interview with him and learn Talmud with him and show him that you could learn. Imagine Ed Grimley going in to meet with Rabbi Cohen. So I did those 2 sketches. I remember writing them, and then I remember performing them, and the sound of a few hundred people just laughing And I had that moment where I went, this is the greatest thing I've ever done in my life so far. I'm like 15, 16. I'm like, nothing has ever given me this much energy and love. I had seniors and juniors that wouldn't look at me for the next week, just go, hey kid, you're funny. You know, normally they would like smack me in the head and go, get out of my way. Now they're like giving me kavod and respect and going, hey, that was amazing. And I was just like, gee, to be, you know, just to feel this love and more than the love, because I'm not that needy, to feel the accomplishment of creating something, writing something, performing it, and just putting it out there and having it succeed was just like no other feeling. And I went, I want to do this. And then and then my mom came home. She's a teacher. My parents are both educators in the New York City public school system. And she came home one day and said, oh, one of my fellow teachers, his son is a producer in Hollywood. And I'm like 16 at the time. And he goes, they're doing a show called Funniest Kids in America. And I said, my son's a comedian. And I'm like, but I'm not a comedian. Why would you tell him that? I said, well, you're funny. You do those voices and everything. I'm like, okay. And all you need to do is put a 5-minute tape together of you being funny. And I said, oh, okay, I'll do all my impressions and I'll write some stuff and I'll just stand in front of a wall in my apartment in the Bronx, which was not as nice as this wall, by the way. This is
or
this
mine,
is or yours.
Was it
No,
nicer
it was
than
more
mine?
like your wall. It was more like that wall. Again, I know you have much nicer walls, and you've chosen that wall. Yes, and you're living in the country with the nicest of all walls.
Oh, well done. Yes. Well played. Well played.
But as walls go, mine beats yours right now. Yours beats the one I had in the Bronx. So you're not doing that badly. And I remember thinking, am I just going to stand in front of this blank wall in this little apartment and just try to be funny? And that's when it clicked. I went, the only proof of funny is laughter. You know, even the few times I'm trying to be a little bit funny, just hearing you laugh, David, is like, oh, okay, so I guess that was funny. David laughed. You know what I mean? So I said, why am I going to stand in front of a wall where no one's laughing? It'll look like I'm just bombing. It'll look like I'm not funny. I went, let's go to a comedy. I said to my brother, let's go film this, what I just wrote. And it was just a lot of impressions and stuff at a comedy club. When they hear the people laughing, they'll be like, he's hilarious. So I went to the comic strip, and I remember it was open mic night, and I followed a series of terrible open mic comedians. And then there was this one guy that he's a regular here, and he's on this MTV show. Here's Adam Sandler. I never heard of him or whatever. But I remember, I remember taking note going, wow, no one was funny, but this guy, and no one's getting laughs, but this guy, and I'm on next. So at least the potential for laughter is there. You just have to be good and funny. I mean, Adam was always funny. So I followed Adam, absolutely just killed. And I remember saying to my brother right before I went out, I said, if this doesn't work the way I planned, I'm never doing stand-up again. But it did, because I was doing impressions, which is like an easy laugh. And then I remember thinking, oh my God, never do this again. I'll never not do this again. I want to do this all the time. And I just, at like 16, 17, just became a comedian. And then when I went to BU, Boston University, I was doing colleges, performing all over clubs and colleges up and down the East Coast, Maine, New Hampshire, doing hell gigs, as we call it, cutting my teeth. And that's what it all started.
I mean, I'm listening to the story, and the way you make it sound, it's like very fortuitous that you got into it. But having done my research on you, Elon, basically, I know that your dad isn't just an educator, but he's a talent manager. And also you have two brothers, right? Two brothers?
Yes.
You have two brothers in the music industry. So it seems in a way it was fate that, I mean, that wasn't the way I thought the story was going to go. I would have thought that somehow you were destined for entertainment because everyone else in your family is somehow an entertainer. It's amazing
that's a great point. And it was sort of a blend of both of those, because I did grow up in a showbiz family. So in the sense that before I ever started doing stand-up, my younger brother, Ari, who's a great, singer-songwriter, he started doing jingles at like 5 or something. So I'm like 8. And he started doing commercials for TV shows and albums for like kid toys like Potbelly Bear and whatever. And he was so successful by the time he was like 8 or 9 that and people kept calling my dad, and he again was an educator at this time, saying, so your son is in show business, he's doing all these commercials, and we saw him on this, and he's got this, he was on Broadway, and it's, why am I doing Jackie Mason now? To tell you the truth, the place in the book. And he goes, you know, how can I get my daughter into it? How can I get my son? So my father started taking on clients and built this little mom and pop management company. And he had other people while he was still teaching and being an assistant principal at PS 48 in the Bronx. And it became a thing. But going back even before that, my father always had the showbiz bug. And he started the first ever City College Musical Comedy Society. And he showed me one of his, you know, playbills. He was like, this is one of the first shows that I produced. And we look at the actors, and he noticed this before. One of the actors in the show was Alfred Pacino. And it was literally
Alfredo.
Literally, and we looked it up, they're the same age, whatever. It was Al Pacino was in one of the shows my dad produced. But again, his father, unlike my father, who was encouraging, his father was a kosher butcher, and you know, in the Bronx, and he just said, you know, you're not going to go into show business. You know, you better stick with college also and have a real career. And he would show him I forgot what it was, like boil. By the way, look, I still have filling marks on my arm. Look at that. He would show him like the boils and all this stuff he had on his arm. He goes, this is from plucking chickens all day. If you want this on your arm, yeah, quit college, go into show business, be stupid. And if not, get a real job. So my dad always grew up with this love for the theater, for Broadway, for show business. And you know, we were brought up on going to Broadway shows. Like all the time we would go to Broadway shows, and my parents would wait on the lines for like the half off tickets, and we'd all go to shows. And I was sort of brought up with this love of show business. Then when my brother, who started the whole family really in show business, took off in his career, and my dad started managing, that was around the exact time that, you know, a few years later that I got the bug, and I said, okay, I want to do stand up too. So instead of my parents saying, don't do it, you know, you need a real job.
Be a doctor or a lawyer.
The opposite. In fact, my older brother, who went on to win a Grammy for ironically doing the music production and composition for a Colbert Christmas special, because all the Jews write the Christmas music.
Neil Diamond,
yes, I don't have to tell you about the Christmas songs and the history of Jewish musical writers. Yeah. So my brother was pre-med, and he was also, while he was pre-med to be a doctor, he was going to the music studio every day, and he was working on music. And my mother went over to him and just had the foresight to say, just one sentence to him would change the course of his life for the better, which is, you have to think about right now, do you want to spend every day of the rest of your life in a recording studio or in a hospital or doctor's office? And he just went, yeah, my real love is music. And I love being there more than the pre-med stuff I'm studying. And again, not to take away from this, especially nowadays, the incredible and important work that doctors and nurses and all the medical professionals are doing. You know it firsthand. It's not to take any of that away. If you want to be a doctor, please, we need more doctors than musicians. But for him, he really had this not only love, but great gift. I mean, he was like one of those virtuosos. He could play any song. He could just by ear do anything. So it would have been a waste of his real talents to be a doctor. And by the way, thank God, he would have been a terrible doctor also. He would have cured nobody. He would have been the worst doctor, but a great musician. So,
I mean,
yeah,
I think, No, I mean, I think of you the same way in terms of comedy. Did you actually think of doing anything else before you embarked on this career in comedy? Did you want to be a doctor, a lawyer? Was there anything you thought of?
I actually had a love for sort of Wall Street, and I was fascinated by the market. and stocks, and I would read the Wall Street Journal as a teenager, and I would get Barron's, and I just loved it. And I don't know what it was about it, just the whole buying and selling and researching stocks. And I remember being so into it and saying, oh, maybe I'll do this. Ironically, now my son, it must be in the genes, my son who's 19, who just had to cut his gap year in Israel short because of all this, and he came home for the bar mitzvah and then stayed, obviously. My son just a year ago found day trading on his own. I never even told him I was interested. He just found this love of day trading. It's so good when your kid finds something that they're passionate about. So I was very passionate about it, but at the same time, I was passionate about comedy, and I started doing, stand-up. And again, I made the own choice in my head, and I just kept saying the difference between being like a stockbroker, investment banker, whatever, and like a comedian, I had no control over the market. And to me, it's all just a numbers game, a game of luck, and there's not a lot of creativity in it. And I feel like God gave me certain talents, innate, inborn talents, doing impressions, being able to write a joke, tell a joke, having timing. That's all. That's not me. That's divine. And I was just like, gee, I could use these talents for the better. And we have enough Wall Street guys. By the way, now we have enough comedians too. But like, I was like, my talents are better suited to do comedy. And I love it more than this thing that called the market, the stock market, that I have no control over, that goes up and down. And it's just like, it didn't light my fire. Even buying a stock low and selling high didn't get me a tenth as excited as writing a joke, telling it, and getting a laugh. So that's when I veered to that path.